And finally from us tonight, moments in history that we will never forget. 1066, the Battle of Hastings. 1492, Columbus's trip to the New World. 1793, Eli Whitney invents the cotton gin. June 2001, Aaron Brown is hired by CNN. July 17th, 1902, 100 years ago today, air conditioning. Garrick Utley reports.
Return now to those scorching, humid, clothes-soaking days of yesteryear when every workplace was a sweatshop. And then one day came blessed, cool relief. It happened here in Brooklyn, in this building, on July 17, 1902, when the first modern air conditioning system was installed. Now, it wasn't put in there for the comfort of the workers, but rather to keep the machinery running efficiently in what was then a printing press. The inventor of this wonder was a contemporary of Thomas Edison, Alexander Graham Bell, Henry Ford, and the Wright brothers. But do we remember who Willis Carrier was? He changed the way we live.
I think it's as big as electricity, cars, because he made human health better, he made comfort environment better, it allowed development of cities and industries. It is truly a remarkable invention that marked a century.
Climate control meant perishables would perish more slowly. Air conditioning gave birth to the modern office culture. Who wouldn't want to work an extra 2 or 4 hours a day in such comfortable surroundings? Temperatures that don't change all day or all year have led to new industries that have powered economic growth, as they have helped preserve the art and artifacts of the past, including Michelangelo's frescoes in the Sistine Chapel, or old warplanes at the Intrepid Museum in New York Harbor.
We have some very priceless artifacts here, and we need to have climate control for those artifacts, and this has achieved that goal.
And would American life have become this without air conditioning? The boom of the Sun Belt. Deserts turned into suburbia, where it's always 68 degrees inside. If a cooler world began a century ago, it caught on slowly. Air conditioning was not installed in the U.S. Congress until 1929, followed by the White House and other government buildings. That changed government, too. Today, Congress and the President and the bureaucrats can work right through the sultry Washington summer, which has led some commentators to point out that the only way to really control the growth of government is to turn off what Willis Carrier turned on 100 years ago.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
This makes it perhaps an appropriate time to mark the 100th birthday of the air conditioner. Willis Haviland Carrier invented the first air conditioner in 1902. Today, air conditioning is a $36 billion global industry.
From the heart of New York City on 5th Avenue at Trump Plaza, this is The Early Show on CBS.
The market is down and the heat is up.
Willis H. Carrier, 1902, invented air conditioning.
Ira has his research on Mr. Carrier over here. Just
Carrier
for our help.
Dome up in Syracuse. That's where that came from.
Thank you, Ira.
My
What
pleasure.
would we be without him?
Well, bingo.
It's expected to be another hot and humid day here in New York City, and for most of the country, for that matter. That's why we're thrilled to say happy birthday this morning to the air conditioner. As Ira Joe mentioned earlier, 100 years ago today, Willis Haviland Carrier invented what we now call the air conditioner for use in a Brooklyn printing plant.
And from there, the air conditioner moved to movie theaters and department stores. Aren't we happy? Eventually coming to homes in the 1950s. You know, Jay and I was in Memphis one day, and it was so hot and sticky. And I said, what was Memphis like before an air conditioner? They said, Memphis was a small town before air conditioning.
What would life be without it? That's a good question.
Directly afterwards.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of things would suffer. For example, great art benefits and is still preserved or preservable because of air conditioning.
Yeah,
not to mention computers.
in
Not
this
to
early-
mention humans. Bingo.
In this early printing plant, they were worried about the paper expanding and contracting, and it was a real problem for business. So along comes this fellow and changes everything there, and of course for the rest of us.
And we didn't buy him a gift.
Well,
All these
we're
years
honoring
later.
him now 100 years after the fact.
All right, you may not know it, but an important anniversary is being celebrated today. 100 years ago, a man named Carrier invented something that would change the way Americans live. Judy Fortin will have that story and much more when Headline News returns. Stick around.
As many Americans bake in the summer heat, this is a good time to remind you of an important milestone. Today is the 100th anniversary of air conditioning, a technology that not only allows everyone to chill, but has made skyscrapers feasible and allowed places like Phoenix and Houston to grow into huge cities. Willis Carrier invented it, and on this day in 1902, a New York printing plant became the first to use it. The technology made its way into movie houses, department stores, and by the 1930s into planes and cars. But it wasn't until the 1950s that air-conditioned homes became the norm, and that has changed the way Americans live and work.
It's The Late Show with David Letterman. Boy, it's nice in here. Isn't it comfortable, the air conditioning, everything, but...
Oh.
Ladies and gentlemen, here's tonight's top 10 list. Let's try that. The category, top 10 interesting facts about air conditioning. I was talking to the audience about this earlier, and it's the 100th anniversary of air conditioning. It was invented July 17th, 100 years ago. They marked the invention of air conditioning. Do you realize we've had air conditioning for 100 years?
100 years? No, it doesn't
That's
seem
right.
like it. But
Invented by a guy by the name of Willis Carrier.
Nice, great.
And the category tonight, top 10 interesting facts about air conditioning.
All righty.
All right, here we go, number 10. Often abbreviated as AC. Number 9. Invented by the same person who invented hair conditioner. Did you know that?
I was not aware of that. I did not know that.
Number 8, when proposing, half of men give an air conditioner instead of a diamond ring. Number 7.
That I did.
Ancient Egyptians employed a form of primitive air conditioning called wind. Number 6. Dick Cheney conducts many financial misdeeds in an air-conditioned room. Number 5, without it, Miami would be a ghost town. Number 4, the European Union won't accept Poland as a member until all their air conditioners are Energy Star compliant. Number 3, concept of variable settings introduced by Ed Lowe and Jim High. Number 2, that familiar hum, the compressor releasing deadly hydrogen sulfide. And the number 1 interesting fact about air conditioning, 20% of all air conditioning in the United States is used in the Ed Sullivan Theater.
And finally, in our money moment, some like it hot, but most of us would rather crank the AC.
For that, you can thank Willis Haviland Carrier. There he is. This is according to the Carrier Air Conditioning Company, the Connecticut firm that bears his name. He invented AC 100 years ago today.
He designed it to solve quality control problems at a printing plant in Brooklyn, New York. The company says the invention was the first device to offer man-made control over the environment.
Today, it is a fact of life. It has fueled the economic miracle in Singapore, making life in that island state bearable.
Here in the U.S., according to the Census Bureau, 80% of homes had air conditioning by the end of the 20th century.
Pretty cool for an invention that was never meant for more than just one factory. I learned some interesting things about this.
Yes?
8 out of the 10 fastest growing states in the last few decades in the South, they credit air conditioning for a lot of that. And he was inventing it not because they wanted to cool things down, but the humidity was the issue.
Huh.
And the fringe benefit of air conditioning.
Did you hear that my air conditioner, I can't have like the toaster and the air conditioner on at the same time?
Really?
Old New York, electrical systems, I guess.
House Concurrent Resolution 413, concurrent resolution honoring the invention of modern air conditioning by Dr. Willis H. Carrier on the occasion of its 100th anniversary.
The 43,000 worldwide employees of Carrier Corporation can be proud that they continue to carry on their founders' tradition of excellence by generating comfort wherever people work, live, and play. Many of us take for granted the fact that air conditioning has become an integral technology enabling the advancement of society through improvements to our nation's health and well-being, manufacturing processes, building capacities, food preservation, and general productivity and indoor comfort. From its birth 100 years ago to today's $36 billion industry employing 700,000 Americans, we can all be very proud of Dr. Carrier. He did indeed change history. I suspect that if he had not invented air conditioning, we would not be meeting in Washington today, because they used to close the Capitol in the beginning of summer and stay away long until late in the fall.
Bueno, pues ya lo ven. No sé si 3.000 euros serán suficientes para poder hacerse con un buen equipo de aire acondicionado, pero el caso es que hace un siglo que se inventó este nuevo elemento de uso por parte de los ciudadanos, el aire acondicionado, y lo hizo paradójicamente en una sala de impresión de un periódico. Por entonces, ni en las cafeterías, ni en los cines, ni por supuesto en las viviendas podían acceder a ese novedoso invento. Lo que entonces era un lujo, hoy está al alcance de todos, y más en estas fechas en las que el calor y el sol aprietan.
17 de julio de 1902, hace 100 años, Willis Carrier sienta las bases del aire acondicionado. Por esa época, un impresor neoyorquino tenía serias dificultades durante el proceso de impresión. El papel, debido a las variaciones de temperatura, calor y humedad, no imprime con calidad y la tinta no seca correctamente. Carrier diseña una máquina para controlar la humedad, dando lugar a la primera unidad de climatización de la historia. La prueba de fuego llega en 1925 en los cines Rivoli de Nueva York. Respaldado por una amplia publicidad, se instala el aire acondicionado. Nadie se acuerda de la película que proyectaron, pero sí de las largas colas que se formaron en el cine. 5 años después, 300 salas instalan el nuevo invento. Al Congreso de los Estados Unidos llegaría en 1928. Ese mismo año se fabrica un equipo cuya principal aplicación era la doméstica. La Gran Depresión pone un punto y aparte en la fabricación del aire acondicionado. Hoy en día es uno de los electrodomésticos más vendidos y usados en el verano, aunque todavía hay quienes prefieren otro método más viejo para refrescarse, como un buen chapuzón en una fuente o un gran vaso de agua.
Count on CBS 2 News.
You heard the forecast, right?
Yep.
Hotter tomorrow.
But things could be worse if it wasn't for one young man who had an idea and tried it out 100 years ago today in Brooklyn.
Boy, are we happy for that young man. This is a really cool Maury story.
Hot enough for you? There's more on the way, but be thankful to this guy. Where are you guys from?
Ohio. Ohio?
Do you guys know where the first air conditioner happened?
No. No.
It happened in New York City.
Oh.
It was this week 100 years ago, here at Morgan and Grant in the Greenpoint section of Brooklyn, inside this printing plant. Now, the people who owned the print shop weren't particularly sweating the fact that their employees were hot. They were worried about their printing process, which was getting all screwed up by the humidity. 25-year-old Dr. Willis Carrier, 1 year out of Cornell, paid $10 a week by the Buffalo Forge Company, installed this system he'd come up with, soon to be called air conditioning. And soon other factories in temperature and moisture-sensitive businesses would follow suit. Eventually they realized people might like being air-conditioned too. And some of the first air conditioning happened right here in Times Square, the old Rivoli Theater. Remember those signs everywhere, not just the theaters, the department stores. In the late 20s, Carrier made Hudson's in Detroit, the first air-conditioned department store. And you know, Macy's and Gimbel's followed suit. Gimbel's? Boy, are you old. At first, only rich folks had it in their homes. And you know where the expression Carrier came from. People would go to the store, buy an air conditioner, and say, I'm going to carry her home.
Oh, candy slapper.
But seriously, by the 40s, average folks were carrying their air conditioners home to their apartments and out to their homes in the burgeoning burbs. Carrier even got some, we underline some, of the hot air out of Congress. And the company was early into air conditioning cars. So now that you know the rest of the story, what do you think?
That's cool.
But really, really seriously, we could not have done this story without the help of our fans. Maury Alter, CBS 2 News.
Very cute. It's estimated that 80% of the homes in the United States have air conditioning.
ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
100 years and still counting, celebrating the invention that helps keep everyone cool during the dog days of summer.
Well, if you love your air conditioning, this is your day. AC was invented 100 years ago on this date by a 25-year-old just out of college who apparently didn't mean to invent anything. The first building to get it was in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. Air conditioning, what started as a luxury for many of us in our homes and cars, is now a necessity. Today marks the 100th anniversary of the invention of air conditioning.
Right, that's right. That's true. We have to have air conditioning. We cannot live without it.
Teresa is not alone. The first time the public got a taste of so-called indoor refrigeration was at the Rivoli Theater in Times Square back in 1925. But on this day, a century ago, this Brooklyn factory was the first building on Earth to get air conditioning. The system was designed by a 25-year-old engineer named Willis Carrier.
Well, this building right here, back in 1902, was the first installation of air conditioning. It was a printing plant inside that building. They were having problems with their printing presses. The paper would change size because of the moisture in the air.
So Carrier came up with a way to keep the temperature and humidity at a constant level.
So there were big heating coils that were used to heat the building, and instead of running steam through the coils, what he did was he ran chilled water through the coils.
His new system cooled the air and pulled out the moisture.
You know, it just figures that when I show up 100 years later to do a story on this building, there is no air conditioning at all.
Up here on the roof in Greenpoint is all that is left of the vent system. All of the coils were removed years ago, and that printing company is long gone. But no one seems to mind. Teresa points out she doesn't live or work there.
I am 72 years old.
And you love air conditioning?
I love air conditioning. I couldn't live without it.
You think this should be a national holiday?
That's right.
And we love Teresa. Well, 85% of the homes in the north have some sort of air conditioning. In the south, and this makes sense, it's more like 95%.
But when you showed up, it wasn't there.
There was no air conditioning at all.
You're watching NBC 10 News at 5.
On this sweltering hot day, we celebrate the coolest birthday ever. It is the 100th anniversary of air conditioning. This is the father of cool, Dr. Willis Carrier. On July 17, 1902, Carrier invented modern air conditioning. For the first 2 decades of the 20th century, it was used primarily to cool machines, not people. Then after World War II, people began to put air conditioning in their homes. Great idea.
As far as I'm concerned, he's in the same category with Ford, who invented the car, Bell, who did the telephone, Edison with the electricity. He belongs in that category. And I think he's rightly being recognized now, and I'm so thankful for it.
I'm with you. Carrier Corporation, which proudly bears its founder's name, is the industry leader in air conditioning. They have manufactured 100 million air conditioners in the past 100 years.
We have breaking news from the Weather Center. This is a very important day because we're celebrating the 100th anniversary of the invention of air conditioning. And here's the guy that did it. I'm telling you, this guy should have his own day. It's Willis Carrier. He's handsome. And 100 years ago today, he actually air-cooled the first printing plant in Brooklyn. This was a guy making $10 an hour. Can you believe he came up with that? And we think he should have his own day. So it's going to be Willis Haviland Carrier Day in the Fox 5 Weather Center.
This is Chicago's very own WGN News at 9.
Today is the 100th birthday of air conditioning, and the person you can thank for it is Willis Carrier. All that cool air was made possible by Carrier, whose name is one of many brands of air conditioning units. On this day, 100 years ago, Carrier completed his drawings and submitted them for what became recognized as the world's first modern air conditioning system. And so,
Mr. Carrier,
thank you.
Live from Hollywood, this is the KTLA Morning News.
And now a moment of thanks to a man who cooled off the nation and made hot weather bearable indoors. 100 years ago today, Willis Haviland Carrier invented air conditioning. He did it to help a publishing company cool paper that was expanding due to heat. Now, pay close attention. This could be a mind-bender question in the future. By the 1920s, movie houses and department stores used Carrier's invention, and by 1960, 12% of American homes had air conditioning. Today, 80% of U.S. homes use AC.
And thank goodness for it here in the Southland. But remember, change those filters. They get clogged, and then boom, the pressure goes.
And then it doesn't work. Yeah, absolutely.
This is UPN 50 Nightside.
If you're watching this newscast in climate-controlled comfort, spare a thought about this. The air conditioner is 100 years old today. Cornell graduate Willis Carrier developed the very first air cooling system back on July 17, 1902. His new device was first used to control humidity levels in printing plants. It wasn't until 6 years later that the term air conditioning was first used, and we are greatly indebted to that man.
Oh, we certainly do need them now.
Okay, it's time now to answer tonight's trivia question. We asked you earlier what was invented 100 years ago today. The hint was it makes your life pretty cool, and it's kind of up there in the right-hand corner. The air conditioner, invented by American engineer Willis Carrier. Carrier correctly predicted that his apparatus for treating air, as he called it, would be used to enhance comfort, as well as improve industrial processes and products.
And we need that to work very much right now because it is hot outside. Not that I'm complaining.
Responsible for developing South Florida out here like the way it is. Otherwise, you know, none of us would be here.
Be in trouble.
Yeah, we'd really be in trouble.